The music playing right now actually is one that you highlighted that should definitely bring into, featuring Monica Joy. It sounds lovely, and if I could show you visual aspects of this, it's really lovely. Very
No, thank you. Thank you for that. No, it's
still finding the word.
I had
Shapely.
yeah, I had the chance to work with with an amazing vocalist up in San Francisco named Monica Joy, and isn't it amazing when sometimes just a track comes together, you get somebody in the room and it's just like you're out of there in an hour and you got everything you need, and she just it's an amazing synergy that we had. So, yeah, and that's the track that came out of it.
Amazing. And you released it during the pandemic as well, right?
We're yeah, I released it under a label I have with my partner Parcel, Position Obscure Recordings, and yeah, we just made it. We're a digital only release label, and the pandemic actually, suited where we were at in terms of the development of it pretty well. I mean, gave us a chance to work on some of our A&R, some of our own releases, some remixes, and yeah, yeah, yeah.
Amazing. I'm going to dive right in and listen to a little bit more while I also take the opportunity to do a little ping, 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 ping,
Of
ping. So
course.
if you guys don't mind listening to a little bit more, let's go back in and dive right. Let's get deep.
Baby, you will feel like I do. Wake up your mind, sway your hips with me tonight. Looking back now at all the things you didn't do, you
Yeah,
wouldn't
she absolutely killed it on this.
give me
Sick.
your love tonight. Finding myself dreaming of all the things you could have had and could have been. Give me your love tonight. Finding myself dreaming of all the things you could have had and could have been. Give me your love tonight.
And it goes on and on and on and
Hmm.
on. Yeah, yeah, Stereo, thank you for playing that. Again, that song specifically reminds me of a very special period in my life, and when I had a very lucky chance to move up to San Francisco. Even luckier, had the chance to work and have access and be part of a collective, an amazing studio in a part of the town called Bayview, which is the southeast part of the town of San Francisco. Not really the first neighborhood you think of when you have, but I was part of a collective there of cinematographers, artists, coffee enthusiasts, and it again a lot of great tunes sparked from that studio, and this is one of them.
Amazing. I'm going to get a rewind just right now and
Yeah.
get it all fresh and nice and easy. Okay, everyone. Welcome to Neurotic Notions Deep FM. It's going to get cheesy. I'm sorry. That's the kind of humor I bring in this room. Apologies up front. With me is my latest co-host, but I'm very excited to get to know his storytelling viewpoint of how he developed his career. It is the one and only Might I? I should actually not mimic my own sound effects.
And I will follow
I'm
that
gonna
up
be
with
doing
a
a lot.
pew 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 pew.
I'm still trying to find myself around this, so expect mistakes and blunders.
Well,
But that's part of the fun of these shows.
Sophie, thank you so much for having me. No, it's a pleasure. I know we've been in a few rooms. There's some people in the audience that we've all gotten very very close with each other, and thank you for providing a space for me to just kind of talk about what I've I don't know what I where I've came from, and kind of what inspires me in music.
Absolutely. Thank you for. I've got to tell a quick story to the audience right now, our friends listening. How there's a story which I just won't forget in a clubhouse scenario. So it's kind of weird to say it, but no, it's really one worth mentioning. So one evening, um, I was already quite stoned and just bored. And not to say that I smoke a lot of weed or anything like that. but I was just miserable. The pandemic's really hard, right? And we couldn't go out. It was one of those tough, evenings at Friday, a weekend, and just missing something, missing something I haven't felt in a very long time. And I saw Mai Tai in a room, and I just spontaneously went in, and he was doing a live set. It was the first one I've ever seen in Clubhouse. Like, music was playing, and I went on the stage because he invited me onto it, and he was with Pilar, and I was like, oh my God, you can play music on here? He was like, yeah, I've got it. I just purchased this thing. And he was telling me all the gadgets. And I was just like, holy shit. He was like, yeah. And I was like, I'm loving this music. And Pilar then opens her mic up and she's talking to me like as if we're on the dance floor, talking like, oh my God, isn't the music great? And I'm like, yeah. And like, if you could be on a virtual dance floor, this was how it felt. And going with the high and obviously, the music that Sam was playing, um, I finally got back, like as if the closest I could get to a dance floor was this moment right there. And for me, it was like I was in my element. I even had to leave for a brief moment just to tell some of my like Clubhouse friends, there is a rave going on in Clubhouse. You have to see it. You have to see it. And no one gave two absolute craps. They just thought I was bloody bonkers. And then for a good hour, I'm not joking, I was somehow in a, one of those like tapping motions, like in my bed, absolutely stoned off my nut, enjoying at least 2 hours of this in element. And I have to thank you so much for giving me so much joy and making me, remember what it's like to hear music in a setting that I'm just, dying for.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you. Very simple. I was lucky enough to fall into a room where an individual was being very vocal about what he was using. Again, probably one of the first or second rooms that I popped into, and again, just absorbed the knowledge. And he ended it with, "I give this knowledge to you guys, and or whatever this information, but just pay it forward. Don't withhold the info or whatever it is." So, that's the kind of, I guess that's the resonating theme that we have here on Clubhouse, is that we're all here to kind of help each other. We're all here to, I don't know, assist in any way. And to everyone in the audience, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you guys are all busy, and just taking the time to be able to support and create this ecosystem that we've been talking about.
So we're gonna do a little storytelling before we, allow our audience up and to shoot the shit with us. I want to go back into time a little bit. I want to go right into the beginning of yourself, music. Like, how old were you when, the passion, the drive, something triggered in you that made you feel something
um,
a little bit more than just, I like this song,
yeah.
someone's very talented or something like that? Or was there like an instrument that you played as a child that kind of catapulted the love for music? Like, what is your story? I'd love to just be all ears listening.
Yeah, it's funny. As much as I want to tell this tall tale about being at this one place at this right time and passion hitting me, I got into music like most kids here in Southern California. Growing up in middle school, trying to find your voice, trying to find like the crew that you hung out with, and creating your identity. And music was like a huge integral part of that, like finding who you were as an early teenager. So for me, where I, when I look back, I'm super thankful, is I fell into a community of punk rock and hardcore here in Southern California, actually, Boston, East Coast, West Coast. At the time, there was a
Whoa,
huge,
whoa,
yeah,
whoa, hold up.
yeah.
Punk rock?
Punk rock, hardcore, metal, death metal, as we say down here, the straight edge shit.
I did not see that coming.
Yeah. So again, when a lot of my peers in high school were going off and drinking and going to parties, I was going to the Showcase Theater. We were going to Chain Reaction in Anaheim, and we were going to metal, hardcore shows. Me and the crew. Um, it was a few friends from the high school, a few friends from the neighboring one, but we all kind of found that, like, whatever it was rooted in the music, but it was also rooted in this belief of, for those that know, straight edge culture, which is, for those that aren't familiar with it, it's no drinking, no smoking, and no casual sex. So there was this kind of like, it was the first time in my life that I was part of a crew that believed in something that was rooted in music, and we did that. We wore the X's on our hands. A few friends went a little overboard, got the X's on their back. No drugs, no alcohol, no fucking no sins. And for whether or not you agree with that or not, that was something that I really gravitated to in high school. And what was amazing is this scene, this culture in Southern California at the time, mid 2000s, early 2000s, it was all hardcore, like straight edge bands. You had Blood for Blood, you had Suicide Silence, who's a huge artist now. Unfortunately, the singer had a not a good experience, but yeah, I mean that was the music that I grew up with. I mean, mosh pitting, like being in the center of a pit, like there was a dance to it, there was a culture, there was customs to it, traditions, and that's what I absolutely fell in love with in high school, and that was kind of my first introduction to like, fuck, this shit is so sick, music is so fucking tight. Yeah, and having those around me that did that. So that was, to start it at the very beginning. That was kind of my genesis as far as like where I fell in love with fucking like, not just music but like a culture behind it. And
So
then
would you say you
yeah,
were kind of almost like a skater boy?
I tried to be. No, I suck so bad. No, I mean all of our friends. I'd say maybe there was one
Did you
Anthony.
get a lot of Did you get a lot of knee cuts and bruises, sort
Oh,
of thing?
hell no, we were too pussy. We would just ollie the board and then
Ah,
just jump right off. But we wore it well. We definitely wore the brands pretty well. And then when people ask,
nice.
we're like, yeah, we do. Of course we do. But what it was, this was really cool about that. As far as the clothing that you mentioned it, there we would go to these concerts, we would go to these shows, and again, to us, these bands, these hardcore bands, were like larger than life. We're like, oh, they're making millions, they're doing this, and little do we know, they're literally like they live down the street, like some of them like went to my own high school, like they're literally just like barely making it in the scene, and so their merch tables were super important, and for us at the time, it was like a rite of passage, like going to that show, getting the merch, and then wearing it to school on Monday. It's like, oh, dude, you got the All Shot Paris shirt, like, oh, I'm trying to get that one, So it became like a little like a subculture of like collecting, some of this merch. It wasn't records. That's the funny thing. It was really like the T-shirts. It was like you knew what show you went to on Monday morning when you got to school. Oh, Joey went to the All Shot Paris show. Shit, I should have gone. And then of course we all had supportive mothers that would drive us, that drove us to all these shows. God forbid they were in the parking lot waiting for us. But yeah,
It's funny that
yeah.
it was funny that you were saying about merchandising, because you know what, I was discussing the other day about this. Well, mostly touring, like a tour like shirt of some kind, because I a year ago, last February, not like literally last February this year, last February last year, I went to see Red Axes play in London
Hmm.
very late, in the night, and I know the management and them well, and they were throwing T-shirts of like the tour that they just did literally now in Europe, and I was like, I don't know what came over me. I was like, I need one,
Hell yeah.
and
You
it
do
was
need one.
excuse me, it had no relevance of importance to me before, but as soon as I saw it, I was like, I need to be the first one catching this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have this T-shirt and I love it, and it was literally like, for me, such a lovely memory before obviously the shit hit the fan with the pandemic, and
Yeah.
then I've just got this like last bearing T-shirt of like when I was really at a serious hardcore like sort of setting,
Yeah.
and listening to really fantastic music. But I wanted to kind of go into what got you luring yourself
Yeah.
onto a
Well,
turntable.
yeah, I know exactly. And it's actually wasn't a turntable that lured me. It was the production aspect of it. So again, past high school, Coachella is a huge thing here. In the late 2000s, it was one of those things where it's like if you're not there, you're not anywhere, So
Yes, I
and there,
kind of
yeah.
noticed that even from it being where I'm from.
Exactly. And it was also an opportunity at the time. Some of those curated lineups, I mean, you had those guys that were putting Coachella together in the early 2000s who brought every childhood band that they've ever wanted to see. The Smashing Pumpkins, Rage Against the Machine, Radiohead, every band that you can think of, like as a child, you're like, man, I wish I saw them. Coachella did it. And that was kind of, they had done that within their first 10 years. That's a whole nother conversation of where that went. But for me at the time, dude, Coachella was it. It was the Bible as far as like who to listen to. And again, that I was not at the Daft Punk show. I was not at that specific stage, the Sahara stage. As much as I absolutely wish that I was, I was fucking around somewhere at the outdoor stage, not realizing what was up. But it was the talk of the town after that. Like we went back to work. I worked with a few friends in the scene, and it was like, dude, like that literally changed everything. Like everyone was like, okay, that's literally what I want to do. So around that time, 2006, 2007, all of a sudden everybody started getting into, Justice and all of the Daft Punk, of course, Daft Punk to death, and just like I guess the resurgence of them. And what was interesting is to us growing up, that was like our first exposure. It wasn't until we look back, we're like, oh shit, Daft Punk had been around for a while. They had already come to LA to tour. But for our age group, 30 something, early 30 somethings, that was the first time that we were like, oh shit, this is a whole new thing. And then the house parties and all of that started taking over. And what was cool is we were, again, gravitating to a crew who wanted to host and spearhead those events, those backyard parties, those like, it was happening a lot in Orange County here. But yeah, and that was our first exposure to playing music, playing these songs out. And what was dope is nobody at the time had heard these. Nobody had heard Justice before. Nobody had heard these other groups. So it was like,
No
yeah,
one heard Justice?
nobody heard. At least in this small little bubble that we were in. Again, we didn't, it wasn't as connected as it is now. Or you just go. I mean, you could Google search them, but it wasn't a thing. It was still like the very tail end where like people still heard about music from hearing it, at a club or hearing it from somebody else or that. At least in the circles that I was in. So like they hadn't heard Tennis Hero, they hadn't heard Mastercraft, they hadn't heard Death from Above. So it was cool. It was cool to be kind of on that wave of like exposing that. But again, that music starts it starts to make us go down the rabbit hole even further. And from there, a lot of our friends, and I think looking back on this was kind of maybe a response to the electro sound, because again, you're very familiar with the way that sound, very in your face. And maybe I don't know what it is. Maybe we wanted something different. So all of a sudden, this minimal techno, dub fire, Richie Houghton, Minus records started like penetrating our crew. And then, I mean, that shit completely, like I said, it was like a new sound to us. We've been playing that other electro sound for 2-3 years. In 2008, 2009, fucking minimal just blew our minds. I've had the craziest acid trips, the craziest DMT trips during that time, listening to a
Wow,
dub fire.
it's
Yeah.
like you went from David Guetta, like Bob Sinclair kind of stuff, to like Richie Hawting, sort of, the
Yeah.
transition, because that's what it was in the early thousands, millennium period, like that first decade, and then the next decade then came a much deeper,
Yeah. And they were the first
deeper
ambassadors, I
sound.
think, coming over here with that minimal sound. Not Richie Houghton, but Dubfire specifically. I mean, I know he played a number
Mm.
of shows here in LA where it was like, dude, you got to be there. Even Orange County, like he was super, super. And not only that, signing a lot of some of our colleagues and friends to his label. So that was really cool for him to recognize some things that were happening here in Southern California. But yeah, and for a while there, Orange County, LA, we had there was a minimal techno, if you will. There was a minimal techno sound. And that probably took, that was 2-3 years. That sound kind of started to fade away, I think, 2013, 14, and then of course with Romanian minimal, that started to pick up. That sound started to become fresh again. So it was just really cool to kind of be on at least I wouldn't say cutting edge, but for our little niche, for our little bubble here in Southern California, to be able to listen to that type of music and show others, hey, there's other stuff besides this electro, this Daft Punk rooted music. So yeah, and that's and
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow, that's incredible. So, in terms of making music,
yeah.
what is your forte, and what's your what's your instrument? What's
Well, it's
what
live.
what gets you going?
It's being in a live band. I mean, I mentioned before, I grew up in that punk, grew up playing guitar, grew up playing, and so that has always been a root in the music that I make. Again, I approached house and techno, but I wanted to do. I still had a message that I wanted to say. I still had a voice that I wanted to express, and guitar that I wanted to play. So I created a band project called themoroseproject in the early 2000s, and from
Mm.
there I was able to kind of the problem the question on the board. We had a whiteboard in our studio, and it was always this: how do you blend live electronica with house and dance music? Like the whole thing at the time, and now it seems kind of like, well, duh, yeah, that sounds dope. But at the time, we're not hearing live bands that were mixing all of their songs like into one another, and we thought that concept was so fucking sick. Of like exactly what a DJ does, keeps the energy, keeps the vibe of a room, but can we do that with live instruments? Of course we can, but at the time it was like small budgets and bringing in bass players and new drummers. It was very difficult to find, at least at the time, drummers that wanted to play to a metronome, drummers that wanted to just be a drum machine. I would be like, dude, I need you to just be an 808. Can you just do that? Just a drum machine. Like I know you can, do all these fills and whatever it is, but and again, I had an amazing period in my life working with amazing musicians, but it wasn't really helping me achieve what that goal was of creating this live band element and dance music kind of mesh of a sound. So the Morose Project, unfortunately, took a back seat, and I went back and really kind of honed in with like what my production skills were, because I realized I was like, well, I don't want to have to bring I don't have to exert myself to try to get four or five others on board when I can, approach this from a production element myself. And I think that was a level of confidence that I just needed to come to terms with, of just to kind of accepting the fact, like, Sam, you are able to do this. And again, this is a whole producer conversation, but having confidence in your ability to mix, imposter syndrome, that was something that I really kind of dealt with during that transition period. But it was all rooted in the fact that I honed my production skills. Made sacrifices, not going out. There was a period of time where I was literally a hermit. I trust me. I joke. I lived the COVID life already. Surrounded by nightclubs and just like not going out, because I was like, I wanted to hone in my production sound. I would go out to these clubs and I'd hear these banging tunes, and all I would think is like, okay, how do you make that? Okay, how do you get the frequency to sit in the upper mids? Oh shit, okay, their hi-hats are sitting right there. Oh wait, but they're and just like almost driving myself insane, going to clubs, just like, and like breaking down what I'm listening to and how can I recreate that sound. So again, flash forward to 2018, and I linked up with a very close friend from that punk scene, Parcel, who's basically my brother, my best friend, and we both had our musical journeys. He's done his electro thing. He's gone, changed his sound, but we've always been. I mean, we're basically childhood friends, and it was one of those things where we decided we saw our own individual journeys, and we decided, we're like, you know what, dude, we're very similar in the styles that we're making. We have the same core beliefs. Let's create a record label that kind of fulfills the style of music that we're making, because we were reaching out to record labels, we were getting releases and getting no traction behind them. And even the music that I wanted to make now, this Might I project, it doesn't fit. I don't know where that fits. And so for me, a lot of at least my own journey was rooted in like, well, again, I can do this myself. Maybe that same, thought process I had with production, and like, I can do this. I can do this with creating a record label where I can support my art, bring in the vendors, bring in the promotional um, uh, consultants that I need in order to maybe create this project, create this movement of Position Obscure. And so that's
So,
been yeah.
hold on. Where did the name come from? Where was your aspiration to Might I?
You know what? Again, in the spirit of not sounding forced, it was one of those where I was like in a dilemma. Like, let me think. What is my name? What is an alias? What how do you create an alias? Without feeling cheesy or feeling like it's a mockery. And I don't know what it is, but might I came to mind, and it wasn't might I. It was like, might I offer a question? Might I do you a favor? Like, I was thinking of it as a phrase. So might I for me has always been like the beginning of something, and I can always, I don't know. For me, I can attach other things to it, because it's like, might I, in the sense of like, can I interject for a second? May I? But I'm not really alluding to what that is. I don't know. It's just this little quirky thing that I latched onto, these words this mantra, might I, that I just held onto, and actually, the more that I fulfill the vision, the more that the name really lends itself to the music that I'm creating.
Interesting. That is, I like. I thought it was, actually, I don't really know what I even thought about of what was behind it, but now you've explained it, I thought that was, you know, pretty awesome.
No, thank you,
I,
thank you.
I
Yeah.
applaud you for it.
Guys,
Highly
please hold your
creative.
applause. Hold your applause till the end. No.
Just to reset the room and just give it a little, a rewind. Whoop,
Yeah.
whoop, whoop. I haven't got a sound for that yet, so unfortunately that's on my own gobsmack. Anyway,
Yeah.
welcome to Neurotic Notions. We're in Deep
Deep,
FM
deep, deep, deep,
with
deep.
my co-host for the day, Might I, straight up from Los Angeles, Angel
Oh
City.
my goodness, it's a hot one today,
I'm
by the way. Or it's
It
getting
is.
there.
It's
It's
so
getting there.
exciting and all full of not all fun kind of gadgets that I've got going in here.
Yeah.
It's so good I can even slap my own face. Big time. Let's
Well,
go a
yeah.
little bit more into the prospects of where you're going with your music right now, because I loved, what you played to me in the room, and I love the some of the sounds that you gave me early this evening.
Thank you.
So early this evening, what am I saying? Early in the day. Um, and I wanted to kind of get an idea in terms of like DJing. Like, have you have you managed to go like and surround yourself in the mist of LA and like create that sort of name and that sound that you've been trying to
Oh my goodness, yeah.
achieve? Like I'd love to know a little bit more about,
And
you
that's
know,
what's
where
been
you've been playing in your hometown
yeah.
region and things.
That's what's been amazing here is that the culture here in LA, I wouldn't say it's small, but I felt like the niches that I got into, the disco dive people, the sound. I mean, there's amazing crews here. And what's dope is they've all been extremely welcoming. So while I had these projects going on, the Morose Project in the early 2010s, feels so long ago now, I was going to their clubs, I was going to their parties. So that was, and what was nice is we were part of a collective again. Me and Parcel, my co-partner in Position Obscure, would always bring me on for back-to-back sets. And what was cool is Eddie and Ben, which shout out to those two promoters here, instrumental to like me learning about so many musicians that I just never even heard about, gave us a space, particularly at Avalon, to host a weekly room there where we were able to just explore further concepts than just DJing. Like we brought in percussionists, we brought in live painters, we brought in more expressionists. We brought in the aspect of like it's more than just house music; it's a culture. And these promoters, Ben and Eddie, really gave me the space or gave us the space to be able to do that and kind of like experiment. Even though they had major headliners booked in the room right next door, it was just really cool to be a part of that. And yes, as far as the project moving forward, we are what's amazing, absolutely amazing, is that we are already getting booking requests for the label. So there's been a lot of interest in what we're doing, which is amazing that it sounds like it's resonating with the audience. And again, we have a few artists on board that I'm excited to name in the next month, that I want to have part. Yes, yeah, actually, some fellow Los Angeles rooted musicians, as well as some overseas. And what's amazing is I want to bring them. They're stoked about this project. They're stoked about just like being part of a collective like this, and bringing them out to just to be able to kind of create that like ambassadorship from Europe to LA, where we can host artists that are maybe at mid-tier levels, and have either host a night for them, or at least do an individual party, or some sort of collaboration in that sense.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a really exciting year ahead despite all these
It
obstacles.
yeah.
Would you say at any point during, like, where were you in your headspace when the pandemic hit, and what did it cause in terms of your career? Was it a positive, a negative? Like, I'd love to know how you felt and the obstacles you had to face, if there were any at all,
I hate to say this, but
during this treacherous
yeah,
time.
I hate to say this, but for my individual experience, it couldn't have been a better time to slow down. Again, I hate saying that, but in terms of like our scene, for those that are not being able to play shows, my heart completely goes out to you, absolutely, because that was completely halted from 100 to 0. But it gave a label like us the opportunity to develop our sound and what our direction is as far as the label. Like I said, around that period, we were really thinking of promoting ourselves in terms of playing out. But because we didn't have that ability, we kind of recentered what our vision is with the label, and that helped us realize how important it is to create an immersive digital world. So that's like in the sense of the environment that these songs lived in. And so we've talked about this, at least my music particularly, really needs to have context, really needs to have like an environment in which the songs are able to live and thrive in. I think that adds, for me, I want the audience, I want the listeners to be able to kind of get the full scope of this world, this vision that I'm trying to create. And the last year has allowed me to kind of hone these skills, these editing skills, and adding visual content, and being able to root myself in learning it myself. It's been a really cool experience, and looking back on it, I think that the visual element, I think that there's other components to some creators, and I think the work and expression that I want to do extends further than just maybe making music. I want to be able to express myself from a visual standpoint, from a musical standpoint, and a mix of both.
Um, Incredible. I cannot wait for, seeing it come to fruition.
Yeah.
I would love to ask you a couple more questions before we,
No, please.
bring in
Yeah,
our
yeah, yeah.
friends and shoot the shit with, of course, because I love doing exactly that.
Yeah.
I want to ask first, like the obvious sort of silly questions is like, as an artist, of a producer, do you kind of get so much admiration, and that you aspire towards?
I always say his name, if it's not obvious already. Lefar Lagov, this independent producer does a lot of releases for the Giegling Berlin record label, and his work has been probably in the last year and a half has been so instrumental to like how I approach music, how I approach even just the minutiae of like picking samples, like working with samples. I had the opportunity to actually sit down with him. Oh my gosh, I don't even know how I did this. It was like a 2 a.m. party that they did here, and here I am, all production nerd, walking up to him. Hey, what's up, dude? Can I ask you a few questions? And the guy, bless his soul, offered me his time for about a half hour, and just like told me like how he approaches sampling. And long story short, to sum up that conversation is don't overthink shit. Just stop overthinking shit. And a lot of the stuff that I'm like, dude, I don't know, did that take you 10, like years to kind of develop that concept or whatever? He's like, nah, man, I just did it like in a second, like with a sample that I just got. Like don't overthink it. So that again, this don't overthink shit. I went so far down the production rabbit hole where I became this little like technical. Well, it's not sitting right in the mix. It's -6, and that shouldn't be the way it is. And and really
I love
focusing,
that.
yeah, really focusing on my ear and what the product sounds like, and not letting the visual aspect of a DAW kind of influence what my decisions are. Which I think I kind of went down that rabbit hole a little bit too far, which is good because now I can I
You've
have
learned from
perspective
that.
on it. Yeah, I have perspective on it, and
Mm.
I know when to use those technicalities, and I also know when it's important to use my ear, even though on paper on the DAW it doesn't look right, but it sounds right.
And if you could describe in genre your kind of sound that you're aspiring towards to make, what would you say it is?
I don't know if I could put a genre to it, but I would say this: if
You can put
Morrissey,
more than one. How about that?
if
I'll,
more,
I'll, let-
yeah.
I'll let you off with more than
All
one.
right. Well, let's just place it in an overall umbrella of electronica. But I like to describe it as
Okay.
if Morrissey had a child, decided to have a son or a daughter,
Mm.
and wanted to get into the house and techno realm. Not to say that I'm anywhere near Morrissey's vocal ability, nowhere near it, but I take a lot of influence in the sense of like how he speaks from a very like definitive standpoint. He's almost making a statement in his music. And so, yeah, that I would say that vocal delivery is rooted in a genre called electronica, IDM, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that. I'll
Yeah.
take it from that. My favorite question when we're storytelling, well, it's going to be my favorite question when storytelling, is what has been the most dramatically overwhelmingly hardship to try and get to the toilet and then back into the DJ booth in time before the track
Now we're getting
finishes.
to the good questions. Okay, here
Yeah,
we go.
yeah.
Oh, that was probably the Twitch stream that I probably prepared too much alcohol for prior. It was one of those things where I was, everything from the director to the technical guy to the performer, and I need a beer. I was like, I need a White Claw. I need a White Claw. I need a White Claw. And the timing was just right where it hit me maybe like 29 and 30, 35 minutes into my set. I remember it. And the funniest part was I was thinking about it so much that I left one of the tracks play out. So it just dipped. like the track, yeah, track ended. And because I was like, dude, I gotta piss. Trying to figure out a way to get out of there. And I was like, oh shit, well, the music did. Anyway, it was a nice clean fade in. Luckily it happened about 35 minutes into the recording. But man, did that make the feeling go away.
Whoa.
The bathroom
Okay.
literally 15 feet away, and it's just like so close but so far.
Wow. Okay. I love these stories. I don't know why. I just kind of want to kind of know like the real dramas of like playing live. And I just think the bathroom is just the perfect scenario of like kind of finding out, um, like, did you make it? Did you not pee your pants?
You know
Did you
what?
have to pee in a bottle?
Maybe
Did
it's a
you have to
mind.
pee in the
Yeah.
ice bucket? Like,
Uh,
what did you have to do?
Maybe it's a mind thing, but all of a sudden that scared shitless of blank noise made the feeling go away. And it's funny. I think I even got off and I was fine. I was like fine for another hour. I was like, oh yeah, I should go to the bathroom. Anyway,
Impressive.
TMI,
Impressive.
TMI.
And where's your favorite place you've ever played in?
Oh man. Let's see. You know what? One of the best parties I think I've ever been a part of was these Avalon parties that we used to throw. And again, I've had the opportunity to play around LA, and venues are great, but people are even better. And this was one. I think a couple birthdays were compounding on each other. Friends from high school, friends from long ago, and this took. I think this was 2012. 2012. I was playing the conga on that set, and probably had one of the bloodiest experiences of my life.
Dare to ask.
Yeah, so that would be Avalon Side Room Honeybee.
Avalon.
I don't even know if it's Avalon anymore. Might
Oh,
be, but
oh.
yeah, good for those that know. No.
Fair enough, fair enough. Should we? I'm very eager to play this track because actually I really, really like it. And I'd love to kind of play it for a little bit to see how our listeners can then come in.
Yeah,
come
you
over
could
and
you
shoot
could
the
even
shit
drop
with
it.
us. And
Yeah, you could even drop it a minute
I'm
in.
gonna because I can. This is so great, this gadget. Thank you,
Yeah,
Sam.
let's get the meat to what is it? Let's get to the meat and potatoes.
The meat and potatoes.
So we do have this long intro, but if you'd like to get to, like I said, the meat and potatoes, it's about a minute
I'm
and
gonna
20
try
minutes.
and sound like a DJ right now.
For those listening, this is Weight of the World. This is the A side off of my Endless Giving release.
And this is on your label, right?
This is out on Position Obscure, yes.
And you can get it where?
This is available on Spotify, Beatport, all the usual hubs.
Good to know.
And so I'll talk over this part a little bit. Again, rooted in dance. I like this idea of phase shifting sounds.
I love it. It's definitely something I'd be
Yeah.
listening to and grooving over on the dance floor. Getting into the list of it.
And so, like I said, yeah, I mean, I'm all about vocal delivery. And looking back on this song, I was really interested in doing this like total big build up to like this statement that I had to make. So I think it's coming up right now.
Wait, so who was on the vocal?
So my vocals are coming up in 3.
I was
2,
gonna say,
1.
was it? I was gonna say, was that you?
Caught in the bait of the eye. And we'll take units for granted. Assembling all in one.
Booyah.
Be begging for cover over under your thoughts and mine. 'Cause we're an open range.
Yeah, this song really follows, you know, chorus, verse, bridge, chorus, verse structure. It was really nice to bring that, I guess, song structure to, you know, a live dance setting. So we have a chorus coming up.
You've been known to destroy us, so I don't know what affirmative action is anymore. You've been known to withhold from us a lot of important schematics and tell us to say. You've been known to destroy us, so I don't know what affirmative action is anymore. You've been known to withhold from us a lot of important schematics and tell us to say. And we'll take affirmative action against a literal law. And we'll be no one around you in case you didn't decide.
Yeah, and that pretty much sums it up. I just want to say thank you to everybody that's been in this room listening. Again, I know there's so many other rooms that you can be in. and you choose to be here with us, and I really appreciate that.
Unbelievable. I had a hunch it was
Yeah.
your voice. I'm not gonna lie.
No, thank you.
And I wasn't sure, but I wanted to have an element of surprise for the show, especially. I'm so impressed that it was you because it reminds me a little bit of Solomon. I'm not going to lie, how he takes a very male kind of not something so. I can't explain the kind of like vocals he usually goes for, but
Yeah.
it's the same direction of what you kind of went with. And I just love the drum bits that you bring into it as well. It captivates me, it excites me while you're singing with it, and then the break comes. I really like that a lot. I think this is really lovely, and I'm very impressed,
Oh,
especially
thank
in a
you.
very authentic manner of this live show that we're doing together.